Hello and welcome to another book talk at the Massanutten Regional Library. I'm Miss Stephanie, one of the Youth Services librarians here, and today I'm going to be discussing some young adult books that are historical fiction. And historical fiction is basically a genre where there are real-life historical events, but the author creates a new character that lives through the events but isn't a real life one. And it's really nice because, especially with really good historical fiction, it's well researched and you can still learn a lot about the period and the people who lived in it. So I've chosen 4 books with very different time periods in different countries, just to give like a feel of different historical time periods. The first is called Sunrise over Fallujah. This was written by Walter Dean Myers, who is an award-winning author, and he tells the story of Robin Perry, who is from Harlem, New York, who comes to serve in the Operation Iraqi in 2003. He's in the civilian unit, which basically is doing some background work. They're not actually originally supposed to be on the front lines. However, certain events happen that push Robin to the front, and he interacts more with the Iraqi people, and it's just a really gritty experience. I like how he processes the events and his experiences over in Iraq through writing letters to his uncle who served in the Vietnam War, and those letters also help really chart Robin's growth and just like how he's processing these events. And I also like how Myers kind of bonded Robin with his camaraderie with his fellow soldiers. I thought that was interesting to watch, as well as they learned to work with one another, because oftentimes they found that they were the only ones that they could trust out there, because due to the very complex political situation in Iraq at the time, it was very hard to tell what the allegiance of the local people was. They may be trying to help you, but they may be helping you because it's a trap. And it was like there's a couple instances as that as well. And this is gritty, it's real. I like the descriptions that Myers uses. There's a really neat one of he's discussing the sunset over Fallujah, which is the title of this. Sunrise over Fallujah, which is the title of this book. And it's like a really good description about how it's beautiful, but the desert and the sandstorm make it hard to see and make it hard to enjoy. And it's just a really interesting look at an event that is only about 17 years ago, so I would recommend that book. The second is called The Fountains of Silence, and this is by Ruta Sepetys. And this is, on the surface, it talks about Spain in the 1950s. And on the surface, 1957 Spain looks like light and sunny, tourists are coming, but really it's actually kind of masking a really dark reality, because Commander Francisco Franco, who is the general dictator of Spain at the time, he's suppressing the people, but to the world it looks like, especially after Hitler and Mussolini, it looks like he's the good guy, but he's really not, as this book goes through. And the main character's name is Daniel Madison, and he is from Texas, but his mother is from Spain, so him and his parents are going to Spain, and he wants to learn more about his heritage on that side of the family. And the way he does that is through his camera lens, and he goes and he takes pictures of everyday life, and just to get a feel of the people. But he starts to, surfacey things at first, like touristy things, but then he starts to go to poor places in Madrid, and just to get an idea of what life is really like. And it's a really oppressive, dark book. It is 500 pages long. I will say this is not a lighthearted read that you can just take to the beach with you. But it's really gut-wrenching. It's really good, well written. You can definitely tell that the character grows and develops and is just learning more. And I like how he is learning about the horrors of the Spanish Civil War through his camera lens. And one of my favorite quotes from Daniel is, when looked at the right moment, truth is revealed through the camera. And he does that, and he's eventually smuggling pictures out to show the world what is going on. And there's also a nice, one of the other main characters is Anya. She is a maid at the hotel where the Madisons are staying at. And she plays a very essential part of the story. She learns more about her family, how poor they are, what they do to struggle to survive. Members of their family are separated from each other. And their romance is very sweet, but it's very heart-wrenching at the same time. So while it's certainly not, like I said, certainly not a light read, it's a very good and touching one. And in my personal opinion, I feel that once you read it, you will come the same after you finish. And there's also a lot of historical photographs and pictures in the book too, which I think is nice to add the real side of the story. Now the next book, it's probably my favorite one, is Diary of a Waitress, and this book is set in 1926, and it follows Kitty Evans. She is a girl, a young woman, and she wanted to go to college, but her father won't let her because she's a woman, even though her lazy older brother gets to go to college. And what I like about Kitty is she doesn't just accept this or take this. She decides to do something because she really wants to be a journalist. So she moves thousands of miles away to New Mexico to become a waitress at what's called a Harvey House. And a Harvey House is like a fine dining establishment by the railroad, so people can just come in and have a good dining experience. And while Kitty is there, she meets Emmy and Cordelia, who become her closest friends through the story, and they go through a lot of harsh training before, because the Harvey waitresses are held to a very high standard. And just like there's a lot of tense confrontations with guests, but there's also humorous ones as well. And it's nice to see their friendship grow and develop. And while Kitty does have a love interest, I like how the focus is more shifted on her friendship with Emmy and Cordelia. I just think it makes a nice change of pace. And you can tell that Carolyn Meyer is very passionate about this time period. She did a lot of research. Like Fountains of Silence, there's more pictures, historical documents, just more information, and I came out of this wanting to learn more about this time period. And also finally, like, she got a freelance job writing, and the book is like kind of sprinkled with some articles she writes about different events, and they're always fun to read, and they just really add to the narrative and her character throughout the book. So highly recommend this one. The ending has the best wrap-up quote in the entire of all the books I've read, but I'm not going to spoil it for you, so you have to read for yourself and find out what it is. And the final book is called Olivia Twist, and this is written by Lorie Langdon, and as you can probably tell, this is based off the classic Charles Dickens book Oliver Twist. And instead of a boy, it's a girl, Olivia Twist, and her last name is actually Brownlow. And what she is she grows up in the slums and the streets, and she does capers, just criminal acts, but she's found by her uncle, and then she has to integrate into society of Victorian England. And that is a real struggle for her, because she still feels for the children who still have to live a harsh day-to-day life in the slums. And also our other main character is called Jack McCarran, and he is also known as the Artful Dodger, which is a very familiar character to those who have read the book Oliver Twist. And his expedites, he like runs scams with his aunt, who actually adopted him as a nephew to be a partner in crime. And his capers also lead him to cross paths with Olivia, and they form a bond. And I love, of all the romantic or side plots of these books, I love this romance because it's witty, it's full of dialogue, it's a lot of fun to read about, and just as they like clash, but they make up and they clash again, and it's just really enjoyable because Olivia reminds Jack of someone, and he can't quite figure out what, and they have crossed paths together in the past, and it's just a fun look at it. And while some of the secondary characters weren't really well developed and they fell a little flat, and those portions of the book was a little harder to read, but the really intense chemistry between Jack and Olivia really made up for it. And you can kind of see the ending coming in this book, but it's ties up all the plot lines really nicely, and the journey to get to the ending is quite an enjoyable ride too. So I would just highly recommend that one as well. And you can find all these books and more historical fiction books in our catalog, or if you come to any one of our branches of the Messenger Regional Library. We do have a display of historical fiction books until the end of December at the Youth Services Department at the Harrisonburg Library. So I hope you find one of these books to enjoy, and I look forward to sharing more books with you next month. Have a good day. Bye.